here it is, the end of January. And here you can see my stand out behind me here. And there's about a half a foot snow on the ground, maybe 6 inches. And now is the time of year to do your habitat projects to help your deer in your area, or to trim your shooting lanes at your tree stand locations, or to clean up any saplings, or cut any tree limbs in the way of your shooting lanes, or to actually open up brand new shooting lanes at your stand locations. Now's the time to do all that work with your chainsaw and your Fiskars, like limb trimmer or handsaw, or whatever, your clippers, whatever you're going to use to do that work. Now's the time to do that. Some habitat projects that you could do this time of year. I'm sure you've heard of this before, hinge cutting. And you gotta do your hinge cuts with specific species of trees. Pretty much oak tree, maples, alders, your maple tree, all your hardwoods, pretty much your oaks, maples, stuff like that. You actually don't kill the tree. You cut the tree and let it splinter off, and you lay them down. And you normally pick a spot like along the ridge top, places where a deer would normally bed or look for a place to bed down. You can create more bedding cover for them with these hinge cuts and create winter feed. They'll obviously do the budding on the treetops that you do the hinge cuts with. And if you lay your hinge cuts down to the left and right and go in a line, you can create an actual travel way, a deer trail that they'll heavily travel. And it also creates a good stand location for future hunts in those areas where you do that hinge cut. And another habitat project or enhancement projects you could do to help with your deer in your area is just selective cutting all your undesirable trees, your trees that are dying or dead, trees you don't want. You could open up the floor, open up that canopy, get that canopy out of there, let the sunlight through to regenerate new growth, new herbaceous young growth on the floor, forest floor. And that's going to create more feed for your turkey, deer, bear in your area, or whatever it is you're targeting to hunt in your area. Also, too, this time of year, now's the time to cut your shooting lanes in the areas where you want to hang stands, in areas where it's like a doe hotspot. Here I got doe bedding area behind me. It's a doe magnet, pretty much a doe farm here. I mean, there's a deer looking at me right now. Yeah, this is a heavily traveled area from does and yearlings. Right here, got doe bedding area all around me. And it's obviously a hot spot for the rut time of the year in November. This is a great stand location in November. Not necessarily in October or late season, but November. And that heavily chase and seeking phase, and obviously prime time, full rut, peak rut time of the year. This is a great stand location. And so what I'm going to do is cut shooting lanes through here to the corner of the field. There's a field all out there with grasses and clover. The deer, your does and yearlings, the does and yearlings in my hunting area here feed out in this field out here. I'll be sitting up in this stand and see several does and yearlings walking through the field up there. And they'll come out into this corner, but I don't have a shooting lane to that corner. So now's the time of year to cut these trees away and open up a nice shooting lane right to that corner of that field. And I already have a 30-yard shooting lane to the heavy trail that comes out into the field from back here in this bedding area, the doe bedding area back here. That trail's right over there, 30 yards from this stand. I already have that lane cleared, but there's some saplings, some young growth coming up and starting to block my shooting lane. So I'll have to trim all that back now and cut these trees back and open up some shooting lanes this way. This time of year, it's very sporadic, the amount of times that deer will come through this area by the stand. It's not very often. It's not daily. But when it's not wintertime, September, October, November, there's deer coming by this stand every single day. There's always a few does and yearlings like every day. And then occasionally every other day, or there's a nice buck coming through, a 2.5, 3-year-old buck that might stroll through, coming to check the doe group, and those bigger, older bucks will come through, laying down their scrapes and rubbing trees, just checking on them does. And all in November, a nice buck comes by here every day. Any given time behind the stand or over here from this way. The bucks can come from any direction around this stand. That's what makes this a great stand location. There's trails coming in behind the stand this way. Out here connecting up to this main trail. I call that the main trail, the 130 yards from the stand right over here. That's a heavily traveled trail. It's traveled year round, I've noticed through the years. So that's why I really wanted to stand right here. It's a great stand location. But I target this. I normally don't hunt this stand location until November. I hunt other places in October in bow season. Because your big mature bucks, they're going to hang on the outskirts of their doe areas. The big bucks hang deeper into the forest. Their main core areas are further away from this area. But they'll in the night time and stuff, they'll venture out into these fields and into the doe groups. And occasionally there'll be some daytime travel from them older mature bucks in this area early in the season, but not typically. It's not till November that I'll see bucks on their hooves traveling through here at any random times of the day. I mean, I've got pictures of big mature bucks coming by here at 11 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. Just never know in November. So this is a great November stand location for the rut during that rut time of the year, that heavily chase and seeking phase and peak of the rut time. Yeah, I'm just rambling now. Yeah, right. Walked that way. Yeah, right under my stand. Deer. And right over here is the bigger set of tracks. That's a good sized deer there. That could have been a buck, but I highly doubt it. I think it was a doe and yearling came through because you got the smaller set of tracks over there from like a younger year-old deer, and this was probably like a 3-4-year-old doe or something that walked through. And they came, walked right under my stand. I'm getting ready to do one of my projects for my do-it-yourself deer habitat improvement. This time of year, end of March, beginning of April. Great time to do what's known as frost seeding. So what happens is during the day when the temperature rises, the ground will thaw, the frost will start to thaw and push the soil up and crack the soil in the ground. And it's going to create all them crevices and cracks. It's going to loosen up that soil. And when that happens, get out there and throw your seed down, especially before a rain event. It's going to be raining tomorrow. So this is the day, this is the time now to get that seed in the ground. That seed's going to work its way into the cracks and crevices and the loose soil behind me. The rain's going to come tomorrow to help moisten that seed and help speed up the germination of that seed a little more. And then and every night it's been getting to freezing like 32 or below 30 degrees and freezing up that ground, creating a little more frost. And that's going to help secure that seed into the soil. And all that thawing and freezing is going to work that seed down into the cracks and crevices of that soil. And with the rain, the early rains in the spring, it's going to germinate that seed very quickly and allow that clover and grass, whatever you're planting, to start growing. And so I'm doing that now here in this location. I'm going to frost seed. This dirt road behind me here is used for logging in the wintertime. It's really only traveled in the winter months when I'm not hunting, when it's not hunting season, which is perfect. When they're done logging, the logging operators will bring their excavator in here and smooth out the road, and they grub it up. They pretty much till the soil for me, which is great. I don't have to do that part of it myself. But if you're going to do, this is going to be one of your do-it-yourself projects for deer habitat improvement, to plant little micro food plots near prime bedding area, near prime buck bedding area. You can use this implement stuff you can attach to your four-wheeler, help till the soil, the ground, where you want to plant that micro food plot. Or maybe you own a small tractor that you can use to do that. And you can do it by hand with hand tools, hand rakes and shovels to rough up. Especially if you're just doing a micro food plot, you can get away with doing it with hand tools because it's only going to be a couple acres in size. It's not going to be really big. Maybe even only one. In some cases, micro food plots are less than an acre. They're only so many hundreds of feet wide by hundreds of feet long. And a lot of times those micro food plots, guys plant them near a prime tree stand location that's like nearby really good buck bedding area and good watering hole and all that stuff. You want to have all the ingredients around you that's necessary to hold them bucks. As Bill Winke would say, I'm building a buck trap, the ultimate buck trap. That's a quote from Bill Winke. I've been watching his videos and stuff on do-it-yourself deer habitat improvement. And Bill Winke will do this similar thing. He'll go into an area up onto the ridges and knolls and hills where he hunts, and Bill Winke will selective cut. He'll cut all dead trees that he doesn't want. He'll leave all the good prime trees, the trees that are producing mast, like acorns and things like that. He'll leave them, and he'll open up the canopy to allow more sunlight in and to help to germinate any seed that's been laying dormant there that will help regenerate growth, bring in new regenerating growth, new succulent vegetation, and so that new trees can grow to make it the habitat just that much more pleasing to the deer. And in essence, he's creating a buck trap, the ultimate buck trap. And in some cases too, Bill Winke will have micro food plots planted in these openings. You could do any number of things really to improve your deer habitat. But you want to have water nearby and actually already known prime buck bedding areas, which I have behind me here. There's a hillside ridge right behind me, and I'm always jumping bucks out of there, and I'm always finding buck beds in the tall grasses and weeds right where they have the upper hand. They're always bedding where they can see with 360 degrees around them, and they can smell all the scents and odors around them really good. So good prime buck bedding requires pretty much good prime buck bedding areas are going to allow that buck to have the upper hand. They're going to bed on points, where ridges come to a point. They're going to bed on high rises where they can see all the way around them, where they can smell everything around them, see and hear and smell everything around them. And you want to have that type of geographical feature around your microfood plotter where you're doing your habitat improvement. And you want to have water source nearby, thick travel cover going from their bedding area to those little microfood plots, places where they feel secure to travel in the daylight. Good. You want to have lots of transitional zones. Deer are creatures of edge. They seem to always travel edges of fields, edges of thick pine stands that border maybe like a old clear cut or something, where it's like thick vegetation next to old growth pine stand where it's more open woods. They'll follow that edge. They'll follow a swamp edge. And I'm sure you already know this when in doing your scouting and your preseason scouting and going out there scouting for those buck hangouts and stuff. I'm sure you found all your deer trails bordering swamp edges, bordering field edges, bordering where the different stand of forest comes up and butts up to an old clear cut that's real thick, growing up with thick vegetation. Those deer trails are going to skirt tail those edges. They're known as creatures of edge. So you want to have your microfood plots, right along those travel corridors, along those funnels and pinch points and near those bottlenecks and all that sort of thing. So I've got prime deer buck bedding area out here to my left, prime buck bedding area to my right, behind me, in front of me. There's buck bedding areas all around me here. And I've got a stream running through right just less than 100 yards that way. I always hang a stand right behind me, right over here, looking over this microfood plot. There's already clover here, but as you see, I've got to seed this ground here that's already been tilled and stirred up. Right now is the time to frost seed, throw that seed out. The seed's going to work its way into the cracks and crevices and loose soil as the ground freezes and thaws and the rains come on. There's a rain event tomorrow. It's going to help germinate that seed very quickly. And here it is, the end of March. It's going to be April, like next week. And the seed's going to take off quick, I feel, and start germinating right away. And probably in a week to 2 weeks' time, I'm going to see a lot of new growth here, a lot of succulent herbaceous growth from the grasses and clovers coming up. It's going to, what looks brown and dead here behind me is going to be green in a couple weeks from now after I seed here today. Oh, yeah, I better get after it. I think I see a buck rub back there. But yes, in this location here around me, I'm always finding lots of buck rubs. Buck scrapes show up over there on that ridge, across the swamp on that ridge line over there. I've found bucks. There's been buck scrapes showing up every season back here behind me, and buck rubs all around. There's some big bucks I chase here in this hunting area that live. I call this area their home. They live right here. I've been chasing one all this past season that always gave me the slip. He's showing up on all the cameras I have out here, and he's been showing up on camera in a lot of my stand locations when I wasn't there, unfortunately.